What's going on, everybody? So, sorry, the dog's playing with a toy. This video is going to be geared toward, it's a video for rookies, all right? Now, if you're not a rookie, you can still watch. I'm going to tell a story about a load I did, but this video will serve anyone who's a rookie who is just starting, is, trying to figure out what division they want to go into, or is considering flatbed. I made a video before. It was about why not choose flatbed, and I talked a little bit about a load that I was on that I did. But this load that I ran, I think it was last week I ran it, will serve. It'll be a bit of it'll give you a good perspective on just what you can expect to happen in flatbed sometimes. You know what I mean, right? So. I got a load last week. It was from Wisconsin to... Hold on a second. Hey, give me that. No. You can play with that when I'm done. I don't want to hear squeaking. Go find another toy. Go find another toy. Go find another toy. Alright. Sorry. Come on, camera. Work with me here. Alright. I got a load that was going from Wisconsin to Ohio. Alright. So, and it was pretty good paying load too, and it was at the end of January, and it was let me just say, all of January sucked. I didn't hardly make any money, and part of the reason why is because I took 2 weeks off for Christmas, and it's just, every load I was getting was shitty, and I was not making good money, and then I took, this was one of the first well-paying loads I'd gotten. It had a good rate on it, so I'm like, all right, sweet, I run down to this place, right, and it's a preloaded trailer. So, and it's like the wind is blowing its ass off, right? I think the temperature was like -5 or -10 or whatever the fuck it was. It was really cold, right? But the wind was blowing so hard that day, the wind chill was actually -23. So it's 23 below zero with the wind chill. It was fucking cold, right? But that's okay, temperature doesn't bother me as much as the wind itself, and I'm thinking, the wind is blowing, it's like 15, 20 mile per hour gusts, so already I'm thinking, I really don't want to have to tarp this shit, it's a fabricated steel load, so it means it's probably gonna be some shit welded, usually any kind of fabricated steel is a big ass load, a bunch of shit all welded together, right? So I'm pulling up to this place, and I'm looking into the yard, and I see the preloaded trailer. It's like the only trailer in the lot. And I'm like, of course, it is just a fucked up load, man. It's like, I pull into the yard, and I park, and this load is like these giant fucking steel pipes, and there's a bunch of real big long ones down the trailer, and then some ones that are curved like 90 degrees and then with flanges and shit, which normally would have been fine. Like, I probably could have done all of that with steel tarps and made it kind of easy, except for on the top of the load, right in the middle, was this pipe that was like, it came from an angle, then straight down the trailer, then made a complete U-turn. So it's this big round shape, and it's got this big flange on it. I'm like, that is going to be a motherfucker to tarp. So now it's so tall, I've got to break out the lumber tarps, and I got to do it in like 20 degree gusting, And don't forget, it's 23 degrees below zero outside, right? Pay attention, anybody who's going into flatbed, is trying to figure out if they want flatbed. Listen to this story and, put yourself in my shoes, right? So I show up there, and I bundle up. I've already got, my cotton layers on and stuff, and I put on my warm hat and all that stuff. I'm all layered up. Jump out, run inside, say, hey, I'm here to pick up this load. They say, okay, strap it and tarp it, and then we'll bring you your paperwork and all that stuff. That's it. And I said, okay. And I'm talking to these two guys, in this warehouse, and I say, all right, could you put my tarps up on top of the load for me? And they look at each other like they don't know what in the fuck I'm talking about, right? I'm like with a forklift, if you have a forklift around here, could you have a forklift come outside and put my tarps on top of the load for me. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, we'll send a guy out there, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, go back out to the truck, take my hat off, I put my ski mask on, you know, with a beanie on top of it, and put my hood up, and I've got my cotton layer, my t-shirt, a flannel layer, my heavy jacket. I'm ready to go. And I jump out there, and it's cold, to where, like, if I have my ski mask here, then it fogs up my sunglasses. So I put it about, like, right here, you know, with my nose, so I can breathe through my nose. And, like, it's so cold outside that ice crystals will form in your nostrils and, like, in your sinuses, and ice crystals will form all right here just from your breath. When you breathe out, ice will form there. That's how cold it is outside. Right? But everything else was super warm. This was the only part of my entire body that was exposed, my eyes and my nose. Everything else was bundled up. I had my super insulated work gloves on and all that stuff, right? Toss my straps, get on my belly straps, and get everything situated. I put a shit ton of straps on it, tighten everything up, cranked it all down, and then I'm like, where's the guy? I have my tarps out. I was like, where the hell is the guy supposed to put my tarps up? So I'm waiting for a minute, and I'm like, oh, God, all right, I gotta go back inside. I go back inside, and I'm like, hey, could you get your forklift driver to help me with my tarps real quick? Like, yeah, I'll holler at him real quick. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll be waiting for him. Always be nice to these people, they're your customers, all right? So, even when you don't want to. So anyways, I go back outside, and I wait for the guy, and eventually a dude rolls out in the forklift nice and slow, and the guy's like, okay, so how do we do this? Like they never put tarps on trucks for anybody. They want these fucking loads tarped. This shipper does, but it's like they never have anybody. This is a 130-pound tarp, bone dry. That's with no snow, ice, or rain in it. Because then it's like 140, 150 pounds. And this load's like 8 feet tall. About maybe 6 foot in the lower spots. I'm like, why am I going to break my back lifting 130 pounds up onto the load twice when you guys have got a perfectly good forklift? So I don't know. It's like, oh, I've never done this before. I'm like, look, you got the thing where it squeezes the forks, it moves the forks in and out. Roll up to it, squeeze it with your forks, and drop it up there. Super easy, right? He's like, oh, okay, sweet, yeah. Drops the tarps up there. Everything up until this point is normal shit. That's how everything always typically goes, right? Until I start to try to tarp this thing. And I knew, like, what? The wind's blowing. And, but, you know what? I've dealt with tarp. I've dealt with wind and tarping and stuff like that before. Especially when a lot of these places you go to are in the middle of a giant fucking field. They're in the middle of nowhere. They're surrounded by pastures and stuff like that. So I've had to deal with it before. But I'm like, you know what? A gust will come along, and then it'll calm down. I'm like, I'm going to get the rear tarp rolled out, down over the load, and then I'm going to get I'm going to jump down real quick, and I'm going to secure it, and then I'll roll the second one out. The reason why I was going to do this is because the way this pipe up top, this big round giant pipe, is right in the middle of the trailer. So the tarp ends right here. That's the rear tarp. So basically, if I don't secure it, it'll fall down off that piece. They stuck it right where the tarps meet each other, because the other tarp is going to go right like that. And if I don't secure them immediately, they slide off the top. See what I'm saying? So I'm already set up for failure. So I lay the tarp down, and I run down. Keep in mind, I'm standing up here on a pipe load. Let me take just a tiny little detour talking about tarping these loads and stuff. If you don't have any experience tarping them, pipe loads, any kind of pipe loads, are the most dangerous loads you'll ever haul. Hands down. It don't matter what the pipes are made out of, or their size, diameter, length. None of that matters. I don't care if they're PVC, steel, copper, aluminum. Don't matter. Don't matter what they are. Don't matter how much they weigh. Pipe loads are stupid dangerous loads. They're dangerous loads to haul. They're dangerous loads to tarp, to work on, all that stuff. They suck. And you need not screw up on them too. And some pipe loads are 9 feet tall. You'll have 9 foot tall pipe loads where there's like you're standing on bundles of pipe, and it's not like flat all the way across. There's like places where your foot, especially on metal pipe loads, there's places where your foot can get wedged into the, come on camera, work with me here. There's places on these loads where your foot can get wedged in, and if you lose your balance, you're going down. Like those pipes will grab your feet. Word to the wise, when you're working on loads like that, when you're up top tarping them and stuff, don't wear boots, wear tennis shoes. A lot of the old heads are going to think I'm stupid for saying something like that. No, you need to be up there wearing work boots. Negative. Wear tennis shoes if you got them. You know, not sandals, obviously, but if you got, like, I try to always wear tennis shoes, especially working on loads like this. Reason why is because tennis shoes are more flexible and they have thinner soles. So you're able to actually get a good footing and these tiny little crevices that you need to get your footing into. And boots are thick and heavy and big and cumbersome, and if you screw up and you catch your foot on a strap as you're walking, you're coming down 13 feet and you're going straight to the hospital. So word to the wise, if you can, wear tennis shoes on doing these loads. Anyways, back to the nightmare that has begun on this fucking load. You know, I crawl down off this load, and then the wind starts picking it up and blowing it off this. I think it blows it down off this top piece. I'm like, damn it, right? So I crawl back up on top of the load, and I try to pull it back over to get it centered, right? And I crawl back down. I try to get my bungees on it real quick. Wind grabs it again and pulls it back, right? Now, the webbing on this tarp, the black wet strip of webbing that's on the very border, on the edge, is frayed off, and like all the stitching has come off. And it's gone around this pipe and wedged itself up underneath the pipe to where I can't even pull it out. So I'm like trying to reposition this tarp, but the wind is blowing it this way, but it's wedged underneath the webbing is. So I had to go back to the cab, grab a knife, and crawl up on my ladder and cut the webbing free from the tarp. As soon as I cut that webbing to free that tarp up so I can get a handle over it, a gust of wind comes through, blows the whole damn tarp off the load. Like you'd open it as a fucking parachute. So at this point, my temperature is starting to get up. My blood is starting to heat up here, because now I've got to re-roll, fold up and re-roll that entire tarp all the way over again and start over from scratch. Put it back up on top of the load, roll it out again, do the whole... I immediately just added like 30, 45 minutes to the whole job, dealing with all that shit. So I'm like, oh, goddamn. You know? But I'm like, you know what? This shit happens. This ain't the first time it's happened. Just deal with it. Let's get this done and get the fuck out of here. Keep in mind, it's freezing cold out here. So I go behind the truck, and I'm pissed off, and I start pulling this tarp out, and I get it all flattened out, you know, and then I start folding it, and then after I make the second fold, strong wind comes along, grabs the whole tarp, flips it all the way over. At that point, I took off my gloves, threw them up in the air, and I came back, and I got back in the truck, and I sat right here. I don't know why this is fucking... It's autofocus. And I just came back, and I sat in the truck. I was fucking pissed. You know, I was at that point where I was just sitting there, hitting my vaporizer, and I'm just thinking about... You know, what... At some point, I've got to go back out there and do this. How am I going to do this? How the fuck am I going to do this? How am I going to roll this tarp up in this weather? It's like trying to fold a parachute in a fucking hurricane. You know, to the point where I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I should just go in and tell the shipper this load ain't getting tarped, or if it's either I'm leaving without tarping it or I ain't leaving with it. Like, I'm working this out in my head. You know, like, what am I gonna... I'm gonna have to call the fleet manager and tell him, like, there ain't no tarp in this load in this weather. It ain't happening. And I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I could do it in the warehouse, but that would be a big fucking deal because they just don't have the room. They already had another trailer backed in. They're preloading it. I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out how to not be here all day. You know, and I'm thinking, I can't roll the tarp, let alone get it back onto the trailer. Because a tarp, a 26 foot by 26 foot, you know, heavy vinyl tarp that weighs about 130 pounds, it's hard enough to get on the load when it's rolled up nice and tightly into a tiny little fucking ball, a little sushi roll. Because I roll them to about this wide, you know, because they're so fucking big. I quadruple roll them till they're about this fucking big, and they're in a tiny little package. And at least at that point, I could still get them up there. Unrolled, you ain't doing shit with that tarp. You're not getting that fucking tarp back onto the load unrolled. Negative. So I'm thinking about, how the fuck am I going to work this out? How am I going to work it out? Because it's just too windy out here to do anything. I'm thinking, all right, I've got to get somewhere where the wind can't get to me. So, you know, I look at Google Maps because they had this real long warehouse. I bring up Google Maps, I look at Google Earth at where I'm at, and I see way down at the other side of the warehouse, there's an open spot where there's just enough room for me to park. And I'm thinking, okay, if I park down there, then the warehouse will be blocking the wind. I should be able to get this done. You know, and I'm thinking, okay, great. I've still got to worry about what to do with this tarp. So I'm thinking, you know what? I know what to do. Went to my headache rack, grabbed a couple of S-hooks from some bungees, and I put the S-hooks on 2 of the D-rings on the tarp, and I hooked them to the DOT bumper on the back of the trailer. First, I spun the truck and the trailer all the way around. There's not even enough room to do it. I had to jackknife the shit out of this thing because really you're just supposed to back up and then leave. But to turn all the way around and go back down this alleyway, I had to spin all the way around. Like the truck and the trailer are like this. You know what I mean? To the point where I can almost see the trailer in the window. I'm like watching my cab extender to make sure I don't fuck it up. And I just barely turn around, hook the tarp to the DOT bumper, put it into second gear, and just slowly creep down there, just dragging the fucking tarp behind me. Didn't want to drag it, but I had no other choice. Was no other choice. The only other thing I could say is curl it, put it up in a ball, and maybe have a forklift driver take it down there, but I'm like, fuck all that. I'm not doing all that. Because as soon, you know, forklift driver comes out here, it's going to blow off the forklift and over this fence and down into the fucking river down there. And then I'm going to have to go pull a $500 lumber tarp out of a freezing fucking river. Fuck that. We're going to hook it to the trailer and drag it down there. And we're going to start this whole fucking process over again. I'm already at least an hour into the job. An hour, hour and a half in. Haven't even started tarping the load yet. You know what I mean? Fucking livid at this point. So I take it all the way down to the other side of the warehouse, wedge my truck into this tiny little area where all these dumpsters are at, where I really shouldn't, trucks are not supposed to go, but had no other choice. Rolled that fucking tarp all the way up again, put it up onto the load by hand, lifted it all the way up there, and spread it out, and bungeed the living shit out of it. And then I put the other tarp on, bungeed the shit out of it, went down, and I bungeed the whole fucking thing. And when it was all said and done, it was actually a really good tarp job. I was like, you know what? The way this is, if wind catches this thing and it slides off the top of the load and catches a little bit of air, it's gonna, like, the whole fucking thing is just gonna fly off. It's gonna pop all the bungees. So I was like, I'm not half-assing this. This is gonna be this is going to be a masterpiece. One of the best fucking tarp jobs I've ever done. So it came out great. Got my paperwork. Got the fuck out of there, right? It was a pain in the ass. Freezing fucking cold the entire time. So I take it all the way down to Ohio, right? Now, when I get to Ohio, it's warmed up a little bit. You know, it's still windy as all hell. You know, it's like gale force winds. But instead of being 23 below zero, it's more like, it's around 0, maybe -5. It's a little bit warmer, you know. Still cold as balls. Now, I go out to this refinery thing. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. And then it's an existing refinery, but they're adding on to it. So they got this big yard out behind this refinery where they take all the deliveries and all the machinery and equipment. It's a big laydown yard where they unload everything, right? And they showed me where to go back here, follow this little golf cart around, and they said, okay, back into there as far as you can go until the gravel runs out or the mud, whatever, until you reach those rocks, and then park it there, we'll unload it like that. I'm like, sweet. Now, this area that I had to unload in, I was going to get unloaded in, is all mud, right? So there's these deep, like 18-inch ruts from equipment running through all this mud, right? Mud itself, it's a pain in the ass, but it doesn't bother me. This was frozen mud. So it's basically 18-inch ruts. These, like, just peaks and valleys. It's just the most jagged shit ever, and it's frozen solid. So my truck is just fucking... we're bouncing all over the place. The fucking wheel is spinning back and forth from me fucking... You know, my steer tires are falling into these ruts. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Me and the dog are getting thrown all over the truck. It's the roughest shit ever. Super rough. I'm like, damn. And I finally stop. And I'm like, all right, this is where we're at. And I get out, and it's like... the wind's still blowing its ass off. So I'm thinking, okay, wind's blowing this way. There's no cover anywhere. I am in the middle of a field, right? And if I fuck up and lose if a gust of wind catches one of the tarps and takes it across the field, it's gonna keep on going until it hits that barbed wire fence over there, way the fuck over there. You know, because sometimes those tarps will get picked up. They'll keep on going, and you've got to run and jump on that fucking tarp, and hopefully you're able to stop it, right? But anyways, I'm thinking, all right, the only thing I can use to shelter the tarp from the wind when I pull it off to fold it is my tractor. You know, I've got to pull the tarp, tuck it right beside my tractor to help break that wind. You know, so I pull it down and I sprawl it all out and flatten it out right next to my truck. And the whole time I'm doing this, this time I had to change into my boots to keep from breaking my fucking ankle. Because I was walking on, it's like, I don't even know what to compare it to. It's like I was walking on the surface of a fucking asteroid. You know, the ground is just so uneven. It's like, you had to move very slowly, or you're going to fuck your ankle up, or just fall. I think I fell, might have fallen once or twice, especially walking on the tarp, because you can't see. There's just like this pits and holes and crevices and shit everywhere. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what would it take for them to bring a fucking steamroller back here, you know? Oh my God. And I finally got all that shit rolled up. You know, it's freezing cold. I get all my shit pulled down, and then I sit there and they unload me. Total pain in the ass. By the way, I forgot to mention, at the shipper, once I finally had gotten everything tarped, I think I was there for maybe 4.5 hours. So I'd attribute maybe 3.5 to 4 hours tarping in about 20 degrees below zero. I mean, if I was there for about 4.5 hours, about 4 hours and 15 minutes of that I was outside, because I was strapping and stuff too. So you got to keep in mind, it's like, not only are you climbing on top of a load, of which is uneven, of which if you fall, you're definitely going to hurt yourself, unless, you know, you're like a cat and you can land a certain way, but that probably ain't going to happen. You know, so you're standing on top of this load. It's negative 20, 25 below zero, you know, outside. You're freezing your ass off. You know, and then you're dealing with winds and this tarp and shit like that. If you're not wearing the right gloves, you can't feel your fingers. You got to keep jumping back in the truck. You know, at a certain point, even with my gloves being insulated, I had to get back in the truck and run the fucking heat on full blast over my fingers so I could get some feeling back into them. That's how cold it is, right? You know, and then dealing with all that shit at the receiver. Now, this is an example. This isn't going to happen on every single load you run flatbed in the wintertime, but it's going to happen. I guarantee it. Especially if you run in the Midwest and you're running stuff out of Minnesota, Illinois, especially Iowa. The wind, it's like the wind never stops blowing in Iowa. I couldn't stand living there. You know, it's not for any other reason other than the wind never stops blowing. It's like, Jesus, can't we just get some calmness? Just calm. No wind blowing. But if you're thinking about flatbed because you like the extra money, you like it like I do, like getting out of the truck and stuff like that. You need to keep in mind, like, you need to ask yourself, are you up for shit like that? Because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen where you're gonna need to be wearing a ski mask to keep your face from freezing and stuff like that. Because you're gonna have days like that in the wintertime. You're going to, as a flatbed driver, you're going to have to deal with every single thing that any other kind of driver's got to deal with. Van, reefer, like you've got to deal with going through snowy mountains and snowstorms and ice and, sub-zero temperatures. Like, I woke up this morning in Montana. It was 29 degrees below zero outside. It was like my windshield washer has been frozen for like 3 days. It's like frozen in the lines. And I have antifreeze mixed in with my washer fluid, but it doesn't matter. Like, the lines are frozen. I haven't been able to use it. It's that fucking cold outside. It was so cold when I woke up this morning that the lights on my trailer were shorting out. And there's nothing wrong with the lights on this trailer. It's like they were like blinking on and off. That's how cold it was. It was so cold, dudes were getting stuck pulling out of the truck stop this morning because it was just like, it's just straight ice. You can't even see the pavement. There's so much snow and ice. That's how fucking cold it was. It was stupid cold. And that's the kind of weather you're gonna have to deal with. All van drivers gotta deal with that shit too. But then you're gonna have to get out of the truck and deal with a whole litany of extra bullshit. And I didn't even mind it that much because it was dry. If it was wet, I think I would have just, I don't know. I think I just would have driven home. I don't know. I would have been, if it was wet outside to where like it's snowing, but it's like 34 degrees. So the snow is like sticking but melting at the same time. So all the tarps, straps, everything is covered in slush. So even your insulated gloves are getting wet, but they're freezing with freezing water. So everything's soaking fucking wet. Your pants are getting wet. Everything's, you're freezing. You're gonna have to deal with that stuff too. So you need to keep that in mind. Ask yourself, are you up for that kind of shit? Because I have met plenty of people, especially back when I used to work for Western, that they thought, I can get into flatbed. I'm telling you, I don't blame them. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into. I've talked to a lot of people that came into flatbed and they were all gung ho about it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna take care of this. And as soon as they got to start climbing on top of 9-foot loads, uneven loads, like shaky loads, and tarping them and stuff like that, in the dark, in the rain, in the snow and the ice and stuff like some of these places, you're going to have to do it. If you ain't got a ladder, you're going to have to climb that load. Like, scale that load like a fucking jungle gym. And it may be icy and wet, may be covered in snow. You're going to have to get up there with tarps and tarp that sumbitch. And some of these places, there's no tarping stations. You're just out in the parking lot in the elements, tarping these motherfuckers. And sometimes it may be after hours to where if you fall, no one's going to know until somebody shows up at 6 in the morning to start the morning shift. Because sometimes you'll be in a drop yard doing this shit at 9 o'clock at night with the spotlights on the back of the floodlights on the back of the truck, and that's the only light. You're going to have to do that sometimes. You need to ask yourself if you're cool with that. Because I've talked to people that like at shippers and stuff that, man, I've been doing flatbedding for 5 days. I think this is, after this load, I'm going to go do van. This is ridiculous. I can't do this shit. I don't blame them. So not everybody's cut out for it, and don't get me wrong. Flatbedders can be like, dude, come on, it's not that hard. Yeah, it's not that hard to us because we've been doing it, because we're used to all this fucking bullshit we got to deal with. But someone who's never done any of this stuff, yeah, I mean, it can be kind of gnarly at times. You fucking busting your ass. You do all this shit, like you're in the heat or in all the weather I just explained. Like the other day when I was 4.5 hours tarping and securing that load in freezing temperatures, then I had to go drive for 8 hours. You know what I mean? It's basically like having 2 jobs. So you need to keep that in mind. You basically work 2 jobs when you're doing this. Now, the money can be better depending on where you work and how you work. I like it. I'm making pretty good money. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, this winter's starting to get on my nerves a little bit, to the point where I see the curtain side guys, and I'm like, man, if only they had percentage for curtain siders, man. If only they didn't have sliding scale only for curtain side. I swear to God, I'd consider the shit out of it. You know, because it's just the tarping in the wintertime. Whew, it gets rough, man. It gets rough. But anyways, you know, that load was a pain in the dick, but it paid pretty good. It paid pretty good, you know, because I'm a percentage lease. I wouldn't have made that much money if I was a company driver. If I was a company driver, that would have been a real fucking nightmare. Because at least I, as a lease driver, made decent money off that fucking pain in the ass. Company guy wouldn't have made near as much money as I did. You know what I mean? Would have made a fraction of that. And still had to do all the same bullshit that I did on it. So you need to keep that in mind too. Because at least the money was kind of made it worthwhile. You're not going to be, as a company guy, or wherever you work, and not going to be making near as much money off that load as I did when I ran it the other day. Keep that in mind as well. Anyways, that's all I've got for now. I got a few ideas for some videos coming up, so you know, you might see me throw up a couple more videos and stuff like that. But anyways, if you're a rookie, keep that stuff in mind. If you're not a rookie, you know, I hope you enjoyed you took pleasure in my story of pain. But that's all I got for you guys. I'll holler at you later.